Welcome to the Investing Bros. I am T Shroom, and you are in for quite a show here. We're going to be breaking down the supply shock that is coming for Bitcoin. It's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. We're going to be diving into the mechanics of the Bitcoin halving and hopefully learning some things together. Some of these articles actually had some stuff that I didn't know yet about the Bitcoin halving, so it's going to be kind of interesting. Of course, you know, with a show like this is going to be for a little bit more of the folks who've maybe just found crypto within the last 3 months. Maybe folks who haven't really answered that question of what the Bitcoin halving is. But it's always good to try to watch these videos and be reminded and keep our hands diamond sharp, keep them strong for the hodling. Of course, let's get into the Bitcoin chart here to start off. And the Bitcoin chart, as always, brought to you by ALGO. Today, ALGO may have said, hey, things are not moving in the right direction for Bitcoin. Let's in fact go ahead and turn on a Lux indicator. And as you can see, out on the daily chart, let me clean this up a bit here, folks. Out on the daily chart, you can see that we had played in the reversal zone all through early March, late February and early March. And we finally went ahead and broke back down. We reversed, right? Now, since then, we've had quite a recovery, right? And then we've come down and formed some lows back here, right? And you can trace this using an uptrending line of support, right? So whenever there's support, there's a probability that the price will not go through that line of support. There's a higher probability that it will find support, right, and then move to the upside. But sometimes those probabilities are, defied, disobeyed, and you see a movement through that support line. That is an indication of bearishness. It's an indication. Looked at the buyers, all right, the buying psychology, the emergent buying psychology that was keeping Bitcoin from going lower than this uptrending line of support broke down. The trade psychology broke down. It changed. Something changed. Now, that doesn't have anything to do with the underlying value of Bitcoin, mind you. But after spending a lot of time in a reversal cloud from ALGO, at some point you're going to have to correct back down. Now, you can get access to these ALGO indicators at home. You just pop it up on TradingView, and we have actually a link in our description of this video to where you can go and get ALGO for yourself. I gotta be honest with you, I use it all the time. It's super good. Something else that I notice and like to look at is the Bollinger Bands. So the Bollinger Bands here, the Bollinger Bands really is this blue band out here, and this blue band, and the orange line on the inside here. Okay, so I have a lot of lines drawn here. Let me get rid of some of these actually, because there's a lot going on here. As you can see here, the Bollinger Bands have been constricted and also sideways, so pointing sideways. Now you're starting to see both of those Bollinger Bands kind of curl downward. I'm not saying that that's kind of a sign that we're going lower, right? But it's further constricting from the top and expanding from the bottom, right? You interpret that how you'd like. We are coming into a multi-month support here, and this goes back, if you go to the monthly charts for Bitcoin, you can see what this is, right? This is the 64,000 price. This coincides with this top back here in 2021. So this was the wicked top for 2021 on the Coinbase exchange, okay? And then going back down to the daily. So these are monthly candlesticks. They summarize a month of data, trade data. And then these are daily candlesticks. They summarize an entire day. Okay, and when there's a supply shock, which we're about to get to, the supply shock and kind of the argument for why it's coming soon, the supply shock will be a bullish event, right? So right now we're seeing a movement to the downside. We may find support here at this historic level, 64,700. We may not. We may not find support there. We didn't find support here back in just a couple weeks ago, right on the 19th. We didn't find support there. We had to come all the way back down to 61,004. Now, will the buyers let it get that low? Let Bitcoin's price get that low? I don't know. And if we start to get out lower than 62,004, let's call it 62,500, if we penetrate through to the downside of that level, right, that is going to make these Bollinger Bands expand even more. and we're going to have some momentum to the downside, right? Let's take a look at the MACD. Speaking of momentum, you've seen a stark kind of jump start of the engine here of the MACD red histograms, right? So this signals momentum to the downside. And you've seen that blue line kind of jerk to the downside as well. Just a sudden movement. Let's take a look here at the Lux Algo oscillator matrix. And yeah, you can see another sudden movement here. The market was not, the market was not expecting this jolt quite yet. It did have money flow negative here, green, but moving in a negative direction. Let's see on the 4-hour. Yeah, so same thing. Quick, we were starting to have this recovery here. The momentum was building for that, and then just a quick jerk down with now negative money flow here on the Lux Algo oscillator matrix. Again, you can get the oscillator matrix here. You can get that in the link of the description of this video for Lux Algo. But one thing I want to zoom out and think about here is actually just this shape. Now, you may be watching for the first time the Investing Bros. Consider subscribing. You may also be looking at this chart and being like, well, what's that orange triangle there? Well, I'm going to tell you. See, this is a triangle, and as of now, it's broken to the downside, right? And it's a descending triangle, right? It's been a triangle that has, I'm sorry, not a descending triangle. This is a symmetrical triangle. Some may call it an ascending. It's more ascending than it is descending. But in any case, these are the symmetrical triangle, ascending and descending triangle. We went over this last week. These are bilateral patterns, right? And bilateral patterns don't necessarily break to the upside or the downside, right? It's about 50-50. But it is a signal of sudden price movement in one direction. And then you have continuation patterns, which are slightly different. And then you have reversal patterns that are different as well. Okay, and we covered those more in depth in previous videos, but you stay tuned here, the Investing Bros. You get reminded. You get that long-term memory log, right? So right now we're seeing arguably a symmetrical triangle break to the downside. Go ahead and like the stream for me, everybody, and also consider subscribing if you feel like you're getting some value here. So we're breaking down. I got to be honest with you. I thought that this one was going to break higher. I thought that this triangle here was going to be a break higher and that we were going to see a move to the upside when we really technically did break it here. So what does this mean? Does this mean that Bitcoin goes all the way down, that we're going to see some kind of crazy back in the teens or the 20s prices? No, that's not really what is being indicated here. What's being indicated is short-term price discovery to the downside, right? And we had a spat of that back here, right? All through mid-March, or early to mid-March, we had a spat of downward price exploration. Now that exploration resulted in basically a local bottom for Bitcoin at 60,700. Okay, and that's not bad, right? That's not a bad retrace for Bitcoin. We talked about this, that this amount of volatility is very normal for Bitcoin. Less than 18% tip to tip, wick to wick. That's not that much volatility. Now that we're putting in, a lower high, it's still a lower high, even though it's a symmetrical triangle, it's a lower high, which is bearish. Now the question is, do we go lower? Do we have price discovery to the downside and get a lower low than 60,007 or 60,008, excuse me? Because if we do, then we're not in a pattern, a triangle pattern anymore. Obviously, this one has been broken regardless, but then we would start to form a channel, right? And a channel is different. A channel is going to have different implications, but that's counting your chickens before they roost, right? This is not played out. We could easily find support before we get down and break this 60,800 level. All right, that is going to be the TA for Bitcoin today. Obviously, it's bearish. Things are not looking, in the short term, they're not looking good, but the overall long-term landscape for Bitcoin has not changed, in my opinion, at all. Now, there's a story here. I'm not going to get bullish here. So strap in, folks, right? Remember, we're training our diamond hands today. So we're going to stay bearish, and then we're going to take a little zigzag back into the halving. Don't worry, this won't take long at all. But in the same way, the Bitcoin is changing the world. China also has aspirations to change the world. And they're teaming up with Conflux Network. China launches Belt and Road Initiative blockchain platform led by Conflux Network. Now, there's a chance that what is being communicated here to the public is not completely true, in that they say China launches. I have now verified that the CCP themselves, that the main, the ruling party of China, China's People's Republic of China, is actually partnering with Conflux. But if this is accurate to that statement, then this is a very big deal. I'm taking Yahoo Finance's word that China has indeed partnered with Conflux, the CCP, right? So let's get into the details here. This is not small news. According to Conflux Network, the main objective of this project is to establish a robust public blockchain infrastructure that supports the implementation of cross-border cooperation, projects aligned with the Belt and Road Initiative. So this is the, I would say, the big one for China. Like, Conflux has just gotten tapped at a huge level. As calls for greater scrutiny of the crypto industry persists, China is preparing to make a significant amendment to its anti-money laundering AML regulations. This amendment, the first major revision since 2007, aims to impose stricter guidelines on cryptocurrency-related transactions to combat money laundering. Got to get rid of that pesky money laundering. Recent reports have indicated that virtual currency trading platforms facilitated an underground banking operation with $2.2 billion evading the country's foreign exchange restrictions. Sounds low to me as well. $2.2 billion in all of China? Come on. What do you think this is? The Chinese government foray into blockchain infrastructure comes despite its previous strict stance on cryptocurrencies. China began tightening its controls over the crypto industry in 2017, leading to the closure of local Bitcoin exchanges. So there has long been speculation that there could be a major CBDC, right? A major CBDC that could come into play globally and compete with Bitcoin. A lot of folks would have assumed that would have been a dollar or a euro CBDC, some kind of a digital euro or digital dollar, to come in and say, hey, Bitcoin, nice try, but we're going to be the blockchain that dominates the world. After all, the US dollar, in its fiat form, controlled by a central bank, controlled by a traditional institution, the Federal Reserve, that has been the dominant currency globally for multiple decades, right? So it's a scary prospect that now it could actually be China that takes the first step here. They've taken the first step here. I mean, they already have CBDCs, but there have been domestic. They've been contained within China's mainland, right? And they probably have some experimentation in some other countries, right? To some extent, but at an experimental level, not to a Belt and Road Initiative level. So this is not good. It's not good for a lot of reasons. I think that probably Bitcoin holders and traders may have responded to this story. This may have been something that, again, this would probably be not something that Americans knew about until I'm reading this morning. But likely folks in Asia and maybe some North Americans who are really paying attention to this story may have known about this, and potentially this has affected this downside movement. My guess is that this is not the reason why we're seeing downside movement on Bitcoin today. My guess is that it may cause further Bitcoin downside, but my guess is that the downside we've seen so far is it's a technical move to the downside because trader psychology has changed, right? That level of support has been broken to the downside, and the buyer mechanics, the buyer motivation is signaling that it is no longer intact. Right? And so we need to go back down to a different level where buyer motivation is intact to build a price structure to move to the upside. This is not a story that is going to instill a lot more bullishness to Bitcoin in the short term. And this is what's key to understand, is that by this time next week, nobody could be talking about this. The Chinese, partnering with Conflux to make something to compete with other digital currencies. There's a good chance that next week nobody's talking about it at all. And then maybe it pops up in a year when they tried to do this and it failed. That's possible. Right? But my guess is that this is something that's probably going to be talked about quite a bit, because this is a big step forward for one of the largest organizations in the world, the Chinese government, right? So it just kind of depends how serious they are with this, or in what like level they're rolling this out. Is it a demo? Is it a beta? right? Or is this their attempt to like significantly compete with the US dollar? So far, BRICS has been another way that China has kind of gathered some of the world's besties and put together an alternative currency to compete with the dollar. But it has, in my mind, largely it's either a very long-term project that has no expectation of quick adoption, or it's been a failure, right? And in my mind, I think BRICS is probably leaning towards failure. And with this headline here, China launches Belt and Road Initiative, this could be China saying, all right, BRICS is not it, but we need a currency that we can control globally. So we'll see. This is much more of a story for you and me, right? Societies and governments and everybody like that. And it's less the crypto markets. I think that the market needs a lot of time to digest what this means for the market. And there's a good chance that it doesn't mean a whole lot in the short term for Bitcoin or any other cryptocurrency. So let's go ahead and get into the halving, guys. So that was all bearish, right? Bearish TA. We just had a break lower, 65,000. We haven't seen that price since March 24th. So it's been ages, right, since we've been at these levels. And you have every reason to just freak out and be fearful and question the fundamental value of Bitcoin. No, of course not. This is nothing new, guys. We're here in this month. Right, 65,000. In fact, we got all the way down to 61.8. Okay, doesn't mean we can't go lower. There's a chance that we could. Indications right now is that the momentum is to the downside. Where that stops, nobody knows. But that's why we look at these levels. Maybe even bring up a Fibonacci level here. You can see we've broken down out of the platinum pocket. There's a potential that we come back down and see 58. 58,000 is coinciding with the golden pocket, right, of the entire 2024 price movement, right? So this could potentially be, the downside that we see. My guess is that it won't be that exaggerated of a move to the downside. But let's go ahead and get into the halving. You've clicked on this video because you want to figure out what is the halving. What in the heck is this whole Bitcoin halving deal? Well, let's get into it. This halving segment is brought to you by Decrypted.tax. If you have not done your tax yet in the United States and you've been trading or investing in crypto, you're going to want to head to Decrypted.tax, and they're going to just take all of your stress away. Whenever I work with them, with Ernest and everybody else that is at that fine organization, right, I feel at ease. You feel that stress kind of come off your back because nobody likes doing taxes, especially me. All right, let's go ahead and get down into it. Bitcoin halving is only 17 days away. Understanding this impact. Now, this was not somebody who was writing this in the Eastern time zone, in the New York time zone, because it's 18 days away, actually, according to the calculator that I pulled up. The half calculator, half calendar, right, is kind of what these Bitcoin halving predictions are. But you didn't tune in to hear about the exact amount of days. You want to know, what is it? How is it going to affect your crypto bags? Or is this an opportunity that you can't afford to miss in buying Bitcoin? It occurs approximately every 4 years, or after every 210,000 blocks have been successfully mined. During this crucial juncture, the reward given to miners for validating transactions is halved. Okay, so it's a simple matter of mechanics. In 2009, there was this many Bitcoins that were dripping out of Bitcoin miners, right? And then in 2012, it halved, right? So in that and that's where we get the 4-year cycle, right? In some sense. And every 4 years, half of the rewards come dripping out of the miners. The Bitcoin miners are what facilitate the Bitcoin blockchain, right? In 2016, it was further halved. And in 2020, obviously halved again. You kind of get the point. But if you look behind me, you can see in 2024, there is significantly less Bitcoin dripping out of miners than in 2009 and certainly 2009. So overall, Bitcoin halving is a reduction in the overall new supply for Bitcoin, not a burning. It's not a burning of Bitcoin. It's not coming in and saying the total supply of Bitcoin is being reduced. It's not that, right? It's the new Bitcoin that's being thrown out every single day, thrown into the circulation, right, through the miners, that is being cut in half. Okay, and there's a lot to know about mining, but we're not going to get into that today because we're really just concerned about how does this affect Bitcoin's price. And historically, it's very simple. Price goes up Why? Because of a supply shock. And there's all kinds of content out there right now in the crypto landscape that is going to educate you on the supply shock. But essentially, what it is when supply goes down, right? When less supply enters the system over time, right? Or suddenly, in the case of Bitcoin, suddenly happens in accordance to the Bitcoin blockchain protocol, right? Then price, well, the other variable that's very important is that the supply remains the same. I'm sorry, the demand remains the same. So as long as, now what do we mean by that? What does that mean? Demand remains the same. And let me finish the sentence. As long as supply is going down, right, which is illustrated by this one, supply goes down, and demand is consistent, then price goes up. Now, this is not a one-to-one representation of Bitcoin demand, right? But what it is showing is that price has gone up generally historically for Bitcoin. The demand has not gone away, and in some sense it has definitely increased over time. But all we need is for demand to stay the same and for supply to go down and price goes up. That is the very, very basic, rudimentary understanding of supply and demand dynamics and how that affects the underlying price of whatever you're trying to price. A commodity, a stock, a pair of shoes, eyeball surgery, whatever it is. You can absolutely calculate future projections based on the supply and demand dynamics, and a lot of people do, and a lot of people are going to keep doing that. So ultimately, that is the halving, guys. That is what's going on. Of course, Bitcoin miners are, a big part of this, and a lot of people don't really know about those all that much. So let me pull up a little bit, just a picture of what they look like so that you guys can see. So this is what a Bitcoin mining operation looks like, and it looks very similar to just a server room in a giant warehouse where websites are paying rent for hard drive space and operation capacity, right? But instead of it being just to store stuff, it's to operate a large network of payment processing software, essentially, that sits on top of the internet, known as Bitcoin, right? And these are the types of machines that are doing the operations that are needed for that blockchain to perpetuate. So a lot of you are hearing this, you're like, T-Shroom, this is so simple. Like, tell me about altcoins. Tell me about how I can make money in DeFi, how I can make money in all these different ways. Is Ethereum going to be Cardano? Guys, that is a lot of the types of questions that we talk about here on Investing Bros. And you probably tuned in to hear something along those lines. Today, we wanted to take a moment just for folks who are coming into crypto for the first time, maybe finding Investing Bros for the first time and wanted to get kind of the lowdown on what the halving is. Because think about this. Maybe somebody came into crypto and they read some blog, right, or they watched some video by somebody who didn't actually know what they were talking about with the blockchain halving, right? The Bitcoin halving. There are people that are like that. There's a lot of information out there written by somebody with a single brain cell using ChatGPT, right? So we have to be educating everybody. It's not just the noobs. It's also folks who are new kind of coming in that think they're educated, right? One of the worst things that can happen to you is for you to believe you know the truth and not be open to having your brain understand the actual truth, right? That is a very dangerous place to be. So we wanted to help all those folks out. If you're new, obviously this video is for you, so make sure that you subscribe because we've taken time out of our normal programming to kind of get into that, explaining what the Bitcoin halving is all about. Of course, we have a much more in-depth video on our channel here on Investing Bros where you can go check out more information about the halving if you want to learn about it. That video is here on Investing Bros. You can go check out all of our videos, and you can even join our membership program here on YouTube, and you get all kinds of awesome perks. You get loyalty badges, custom emojis, and you even have multiple tiers where you can get access to more. But you get access to Discord, so it's super cool. And in addition to joining the Bros, right, if you've been trading and investing in Bitcoin, you may want to go check out decrypted.tax, who made this episode possible. Thank you so much for watching. The Bitcoin halving, of course, very bullish. I'm excited for it. There's a chance, right, that we see a further pullback, though, right? We've looked at the charts today, and we've seen kind of historically out here on the weekly chart kind of what Bitcoin has done to kind of illustrate that demand has not gone away. And then we've also looked at this chart pattern, which is I would deem kind of a symmetrical chart pattern, right? This one here. And we've seen that it's broken down. It was looking like it was going to break higher. It's broken down, okay? And it's also broken down through the midline of the Bollinger Band, which is not great on the daily chart. It's broken through that that 68,200 level. You don't want to see it. You want to see a movement higher, obviously. So it's very important that we get a good understanding of the charts, of the fundamentals of Bitcoin that have not gone anywhere, and also get, a little bit of understanding of what's going on. What are some major developments? Right now, to me, as I read this, right, from Yahoo Finance, right, this is causing concern for not so much Bitcoin's price, maybe a little bit. I'm not saying it's not going to affect it, because it could be. It just depends how much the momentum this narrative gets. If this becomes as significant a narrative as, let's say, who's going to compete with Ethereum, right? This could play a significant role in the cryptocurrency space. It could have a negative effect on overall market cap as money starts to leave crypto and migrate into the Chinese Belt and Road Initiative. A lot of Westerners might be hearing me say that and say, why would anybody do that? Well, because they don't live in the West, right? They're under the hegemon of China. In the West, we're under the hegemon of the United States. And, that's just the way it is. It's not a good or a bad thing, right? It's just the way it is. And people in the Chinese hegemon are thinking, hey, Belt and Road Initiative, that sounds stable, right? That sounds like growth. That sounds like something I want to invest in. I don't think China's that bad. I like China. Maybe I should sell my cryptocurrency. I've been having issues with it anyway. I don't like it for one reason or another. I would imagine there's not a lot of people like that right now who understand what cryptocurrency is, who are having those thoughts based on, I don't like cryptocurrency. It's much more that, I have this cryptocurrency, but maybe I can't buy bananas in this specific village with this anymore, or I can't pay my rent with this anymore. Let me see what this whole Belt and Road coin is all about. And of course, there's also the possibility that tomorrow, this time next week or this time next month, right? Nobody cares about this, right? Because it was just kind of a PR info grab. How would people react to a headline like this? How would the West react? How would Chinese mainlanders react? How would Hong Kong folks, how would South Africa? Anyway, it could be just a data grab, right? So we'll see. But it's important to especially this headline, to be educated. This is not the kind of one you want to miss. And it's the kind of headlines that we cover profusely, scrupulously, and without hesitation here on the Investing Bros. Thank you so much for joining me. I have been T Shroom, and it has been a real pleasure to take you on this journey to learn a little bit more about Bitcoin and its price and some of the things that are going on in the world today. Make sure that you tune in today at 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time to the Investing Bros. We'll be back live talking about it, digesting, and having a laugh at the expense of probably some very cute dogs on the internet. Make sure you tune in 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time and check out our sponsors. Decrypted.tax made this episode possible, but there's a lot more folks down there that support us and make this possible. So thank you so much for tuning in. Stay hydrated, and if you're trading, keep those stop losses tight.
Trying to make paper, turn that batter to cake. Money like Lego, connect the dots, stack bank. We are investing bros. We are investing bros. Army pipe, lethal on trade. Entries and exits, worthy of praise. Tim, the professor of the TA. Shout it out loud on the PA. T-Shroom's news got the word. Doing better than what he deserves. Beamer, leave no evidence. Soon fly coop with his dividend. Trying to make paper, turn that batter to cake. Money like Lego, connect the dots, stack bank. We are investing bros. We are investing bros.